Welcome to another episode of the .NET Show. For those of you who are at the recent Professional Developers Conference in Los Angeles, you heard Microsoft talk about a variety of technologies that we're planning on coming out in the next couple years, as well as specifically Longhorn, the next version of Windows. For those of you who did not attend the PDC, we have a special treat for you. We were down there, and we got a chance to talk with some Microsoft people about Longhorn, the technology they're developing, as well as some attendees to find out what they thought of Longhorn and how they think it might help them in their future programs and development efforts. But before we get into that, let's check in with Erica and the news.
Hello, I'm Erica Wiechers. Welcome to the MSDN News Update. On October 27th at the Microsoft Professional Developers Conference, Microsoft unveiled Windows Longhorn, the codename for the next generation of the Windows platform. The PDC was an important first step in the journey to delivering the next version of the Windows platform and enabling the next wave of computing. Attendees were given pre-alpha bits to the Longhorn preview so they could begin exploring this new platform. The Longhorn preview is now also available on MSDN subscriber downloads. To support the unveiling of Windows Longhorn, MSDN launched a new developer center dedicated specifically to this new platform. Here, developers can find everything they need to get started with Longhorn, including articles, samples, and community features such as forums and blogs. In addition, MSDN released the Longhorn SDK on its new lab site. The SDK contains documentation, samples, build environments, and tools designed to help developers build applications and libraries that target Longhorn. Also at the PDC, Microsoft gave attendees pre-release versions of Visual Studio, codename Whidbey, and SQL Server, codename Yukon, the next versions of Microsoft's development tools and database. These releases center on continued advancements in developer productivity, making web services easier and more powerful, and simplifying data access and management by taking advantage of the latest in extensible markup language and managed code technologies. Microsoft expects beta versions of these products to be widely available to MSDN Universal subscribers in 2004. Microsoft also announced the availability of the new tablet PC software development kit version 1.7. The SDK is designed to make it easier for developers to create rich ink-enabled applications by providing new and improved tools such as support for web or HTML-based pages, real-time stylus, and ink support, a context tagging tool to define data field types without getting deep into code, and writing recognition enhancements. The Tablet PC SDK 1.7 will be available for download in the second quarter of 2004. And this has been the MSDN News Update. I'm Erica Wiechers.
Welcome back. Like I said, today we're at the PDC talking about what Longhorn means to the attendees and Microsoft presenting it to the attendees. Joining us here we have Alba Funicola, Quentin Clark, Brad Abrams, Chris Anderson, and Eric and myself, of course. Hopefully we'll take and give you some ideas of what the PDC was about and how we help people understand what Longhorn meant to them. Well, thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's fun. So some of you guys have actually had some sessions already talking about Longhorn. I'd like to kind of get your ideas on what you think was important to you to get across in your sessions and what you think the audience has been taking back about what Longhorn is and what some of the technologies are that meant the most to them. Pablo, why don't we start with you? What do you think some of the aspects of Longhorn was that you wanted to communicate to people, and how well do you think those messages are getting across?
Well, in many ways, the message is that the client's back. We have a lot of new technologies for people to develop applications on the client. We're taking care of a lot of key problems that people have today in relation to deployment, for example. And one feedback from the attendees has been fairly consistent, is that they're surprised at the magnitude of technology that we're presenting at the conference. In many ways, people were expecting perhaps just incremental changes. We're showing a lot of new technology, and people are excited about it. We're getting a lot of questions, a lot of people coming to the booth, a lot of people coming to the sessions. We have sessions overflowing that have to be repeated. So quite a lot of good feedback.
Now you said the client's back. Now, what exactly do you mean by that, the client's back?
So, for example, the technologies I'm working on related to Avalon are all about developing applications on the client. So things related to a new set of controls, things related to graphics, things related to data binding. as well as things related to just application deployment and how you build an application, how do you integrate that application with the user experience on the shell. So basically covers the whole wide range of things that you do on the client.
So basically then the smart client application, if you're actually writing binary code that's running on the client rather than relying on the browser and compatibility between different browsers and decisions, we're focusing on making sure that developers can write really rich and exciting applications that take full advantage of the client.
That's right, and actually one of the salient points is that it's all managed. Even the code that we write ourselves, large percentage, probably 90% of our code is managed with most of our developers writing in C#. We have a few that write managed C++, where we interact with Direct3D. That's another key thing, another key message for this conference. Basically, all of Windows on the client is going to be using Direct3D from the moment you boot it to the moment you shut it down. So.
The managed Direct3D interfaces?
No, we basically talk directly to the lower levels of Direct3D. We do a lot of the management ourselves.
Okay. Now, from a managed standpoint, I know Brad, managed code is really important to you.
Absolutely.
So how does that apply to the different technologies we're talking here about PDC?
Well, I really think Longhorn is kind of the fulfillment of what we've had with the promise of the .NET framework, and that we're now seeing really ubiquitous support for the .NET framework across the entire stack within Longhorn. So that means developers that are already familiar with C#, Visual Basic .NET, and the broad .NET framework class library that we have are prepared to move to Longhorn. They already have the skills necessary to take advantage of the cool stuff Pablo talked about, the cool stuff going on in WinFS and Indigo.
Now, as Pablo mentioned, they're using the Direct3D interfaces to take and show things with Avalanche, stuff like that, get as high performance as possible, but they're not using the managed 3D interfaces. How does that message play out with us saying, okay, on one side we're using managed, on the other side we're not using managed? Should developers be concerned about that at all, or is that actually a good thing?
Well, like with any new technology, there is some staging of the technology when we want to be sane about that. And so there are certainly some parts of the system that are very low level, that are at the place where device driver level, that kind of thing, where it's really not appropriate to write and manage code. But for people for all broadly used APIs, the first-class way to access them is with managed APIs. So, for example, the Direct3D APIs that Pablo's talking about, you can access all of those directly from C# or Visual Basic .NET or any of the managed languages.
So then basically by the operating system taking very carefully using the unmanaged set of APIs, you're able to get as high performance as possible.
Right.
And that then allows the applications using managed APIs on top of that to really access as much powers and capabilities of the system as possible.
Yep, exactly. We have both the power and the simplicity. It's really a great world.
Okay. Now, Chris, I know you've been doing an awful lot of work with trying to understand from a programmability standpoint how developers can be using these APIs to write great applications. You had a great demo during Jim's talk, the lap around Longhorn, that I know is really well accepted. What are some of the feelings you have about what developers should be taking away from the PDC and Longhorn?
Well, I think it goes back to echo what they've been saying, which is it's about managed code. It's about raising the abstraction layer on the platform. We have the new declarative programming language with XAML that allow you to write your application using XML, and then we can compile that into an executable code. And so I think we're taking deep steps to try to make the simplicity of the platform be, orders of magnitude better than it's been in the past. I mean, if you look at the last major platform we had, which was, the move to Win32, and you think about where the tools were and what the abstraction layers that we gave you and the languages that you had to work with, I think we've taken it to heart to have the developer be the primary focus of all of our processes internally. We have these huge reviews of all of our APIs that we're producing, and even the fact that we're giving the bits out at the PDC is really key because we want that early feedback from all the developers here, and so it's really looking forward to that.
Okay. And Quentin, I know that WinFS is a real big thing, important to you. Well, WinFS is something that's maybe not quite as visual as Avalon and some of the controls are. In my mind, I think WinFS is probably one of the coolest things about Longhorn because it really finally allows the data that people work with to make an effort in their lives and access different applications like that. What are some thoughts you have?
Yeah, Longhorn, from where I sit working on the WinFS team, we're really able to start talking about the kinds of innovations that developers are going to be able to do on the new platform. That's, from our angle, that's where all the excitement's been. There's been UI before.
Hey, not UI like this.
Not UI like this, and there's been networking before, but And there's even been things like file systems or databases, but WinFS fundamentally is opening up a set of new possibilities. And one of the things I hear a lot of, and I've been hearing a lot about the past couple of days here at the PDC, has been, wow, well, will this mean that I can do this or that? Or, well, what does it mean that if I put this data here, what else can I do with it? So we're hearing people explore possibilities that we've never heard before when talking about storage inside the desktop.
Okay. Now, how many of you have done breakout sessions already so far?
Just you, right?
Yeah.
So, what did you talk about exactly, and what do you think the audience took away from it?
Okay, I did the .NET Framework overview presentation, and there we talked about some of the cool stuff we're doing in the Whidbey release of the .NET Framework. And as you know, the Whidbey release ships in about a year to the V2 release of the .NET Framework. And in addition to that, we talked about how the .NET Framework is a good lead-in to Longhorn, and how your investments today in the .NET Framework kind of lead right into Longhorn.
And did you get a chance to talk to the audience after the talk at all?
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to a few people, and the other thing that was really cool is I got a chance to read a couple of bloggers that right after the session they had already typed in detailed transcript, detailed notes. So it's great to see those messages that came through and that people writing them down and you can access them. So so I think some of the things that people really took away are the advancements we're making with ASP.NET, how we're really into that, the new support that we're doing in generics. So
now, did you discover that the audience maybe took away or needed something slightly different than what you came in thinking they might needing? Did they kind of understand things a little bit differently, or did you learn anything? I guess what I'm asking about.
I learn anything. Well, I think one of the things that surprised me a little bit was I don't know, actually.
Brad knew it all, you see, so he came into it.
Can you give us an example of what kind of questions people were asking? Was there any question that just caught you off guard, or what's some really interesting things that people were concerned about?
Well, one of the things that people were concerned about, but frankly we did anticipate it a little bit, was people were just blown away by the demo that Chris and Hillel did around Avalon, the kind of UI support that you have there. And one of the things that we talked about, some people have already invested in Windows Forms and they're looking at that going forward, and they're kind of concerned about the transition there and what if their investments today in WinForms will make sense going forward. So that's been a topic of a lot of discussions for a while. And one thing that should be clear is that we have a great story for Windows Forms and Avalon. And if people want to start preparing for Avalon, the best way to do that today is to invest in Windows Forms. And Windows Forms Microsoft's going to keep improving that over time. It's still the preferred way to build applications that have to run both on older OSs, Windows XP, Windows 95, as well as run great on Longhorn. Mm-hmm. And Avalon would be the best technology for you to write if you're able to run just on Longhorn and take full advantage of the experience there.
Now, do you think
that was a message that we highlighted during the Avalon overview, that probably the best way to get it started right now is to go for Windows Forms, and then you can take your UI and add Avalon controls later on. Yeah. Or if you do things through XAML, the markup language, you're also able to put your Windows Forms controls as part of that markup, and they'll interrupt seamlessly, including things like data binding and security. We're able to have all those integrated. So the best way to get ready for Longhorn is, do UI in WinForms, separate your UI from your data, and then you can hook up your different UI or augment your UI later on Longhorn.
Well, I think that's in typical fashion, we tend to get really focused on our own technology. Yeah. So I think that's a great analysis of where we are in the UI space. But Longhorn has a lot more innovation than just the UI, and I think that's a key thing that. Because Avalon's so flashy, people are kind of attracted to that look, and they're wondering about it. But in reality, all the innovations like WinFS and Indigo will be accessible via any managed code. Yep. So you can actually take your WinForms app and keep the UI in WinForms. You don't even have to de-invest in that if you are happy with where that's going. And you can leverage WinFS, and you can use Indigo, and you can do remote messaging, and you can do all of those things. And in fact, you can access a lot of this from your Win32 code. Using the advancements in the C++ language, you'll be able to do seamless use of managed code from C++ code without any rewriting. And so you'll actually be able to use WinFS and Indigo from those places as well. And in fact, I think WinFS has native APIs in Win32.
Yeah, the whole integration and support for existing Win32 APIs has been, I think, an important message we're trying to get across throughout the entire PDC. WinFS itself does support, in fact, the Win32 file I/O APIs like create file and find first, find next.
Good that those keep working.
Wait, that's directly in WinFS. I can just call create file and it works.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see a namespace that looks just like a Win32 namespace. If you're a legacy application like that just recently shipped Office 2003 to manage code as a legacy application from that perspective, calls in, can access it, thinks it's just the normal file system.
Yep.
And the benefits around having metadata and being able to relate things together and active information are still there, even though people, even though those applications have still used Win32. So we're really trying to take a crawl, walk, run approach to letting people dive in and get the benefits out of the Longhorn surface area.
Very cool.
So I want to know if each of you could answer this in your own way. What do you think is the best way developers can get ready for Longhorn?
Manage code.
Yeah, right, manage code.
Hey.
Okay, you're unanimous. That's not fun. Come on.
I mean, because one issue is that we're giving the attendees of the PDC some very early developer pre-release version of Longhorn that
very early.
Still a long
very early.
Now, what's the real purpose of giving such an early view of something that's going to be out in not very soon?
Feedback.
Absolutely.
It's all about learning from the people who are here and the people that the build will go out to as well, especially around betas and whatever else, to get their feedback, to make sure that we're developing a platform that's going to provide the benefits that we're hoping it does.
Yeah, we really want to develop a sense of community with the developers out there. So one of the things we have is this developer center where people can go and read articles. We're going to be posting new samples. We're going to be posting new executables over there. There's a set of news groups. So we want to have a lot of interaction. So people should be feel free. They should go and participate. We want to hear questions or people want clarifications on things. The SDK is available online as well. So there's quite a bit of material, and we want to post more material so people can sort of get a two-way interaction.
Well, it's also interesting because we're doing this so early. I mean, typically by the time we've released a beta, we're pretty far along the development cycle. Here it's really early, and the feedback can have a direct impact on the product. We'll actually be able to incorporate it into this version. It won't have to be next version.
So in other words, if someone really felt it was important that we no longer had a white mouse cursor but had a green one instead, we could actually get that feedback and include it in the system?
Yeah.
We're here to listen.
We're here to listen. We're here to listen.
But seriously, I really think this is a historic moment that the industry finds itself in. It's kind of like if you roll back the clock when the Windows API was first being developed. Who got a chance to give feedback into that? And we're still dealing with some of the problems. I've heard attendees here talking about some of the problems with the Windows API that we have to live with. So now we find ourselves at the very moment that we're giving birth to the WinFX API. And that's an API that's going to have to carry us for another 10 plus years. So now is the time when the whole industry should really get a chance to give us feedback on that. So my advice is if you're not going to give us feedback, then you can't complain about it later. So if I hear you complaining about the WinFX API and I didn't get feedback from you, then you have to stop.
So that means you're keeping a list of all the attendees of PDC, so if any of them complain, you can kind of quickly look them up.
Exactly. We have this large list. We're storing it in WinFS. Yeah, the ones that can complain. Yeah.
So with the big changes going on for WinFX and its API from the past Win32 model, do you find attendees concerned about that, saying, "Oh, suddenly, I've got to forget about Win32 and learn this brand new API system. Why can't you just improve Win32 and let me use that properly?"
I think they're excited. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not hearing I don't want to. I'm hearing how do I best take advantage of? I'm hearing more of that thought. I think they want to have an environment where they can be more productive, where their applications can run more robustly. They want to take advantage of these new primitives in the system, and I'm not hearing any remorse over not being able to call. Well, you can still call it create file, but I'm not hearing remorse about this new item thing.
Right.
I can tell you from the graphics side, for example, people were running to the limitations themselves. So they're glad that we're removing those limitations. So if you look at GDI, for example, didn't really have good hardware acceleration compared to Direct 3D. If you look at being able to have color pipelines that are more than 8 bits per channel, that's something that we couldn't do in GDI. Things like sub-pixel clear type, another thing that we couldn't do in GDI. Another direction we're moving to is having double precision float coordinates for graphics, which is fairly important when you're doing high-end graphics and CAD. And that's something that, again, you couldn't retrofit that in GDI. There was no way.
Yeah, one thing I have heard a couple of attendees talk about is they're on VB6 today. They haven't been able to move over to VB.NET yet, or they're still writing MFC apps and haven't been able to move to the .NET framework. And we're really taking time, especially with the WIDBE release, and thinking about what are the pain points involved. Like for the Visual Basic developer, we've added edit and continue back to the Visual Basic language, and that was a huge blocker to a lot of our Visual Basic customers. So getting those people over to the WIDBE version of the .NET framework really puts them on the right course to getting to WinFX when it releases.
So, moving forward, what do you kind of think are some of the major things that people are going to focus on from an application development standpoint? Are we going to be seeing new types of applications coming out for Longhorn? Or are we seeing just better versions of the same thing we've already got?
I think we're hoping for the former. I mean,
Yeah.
Gord said it best. People ask us, what's the killer app that's going to be built on Longhorn? We don't know. But it's in the back of someone here's brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something really interesting that's never been done before that the platform now opens up the possibilities. And it's just like going from Win16 to Win32. No one knew
Yep.
what the killer app would be. No one predicted Outlook, for example, when we were
Right,
building
right,
Win32.
absolutely.
But there it is. I was actually talking to Will Kennedy, the GM of Outlook. He's like, couldn't have built it on Win16.
Yep,
The OS systems were just not
Yep.
there enough to make it possible. So we're hoping for the same kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's so exciting about this time.
Yep.
You know, this is a unique moment in history where we're seeing this inflection point happen.
Now, do you think that the market is ready for applications to finally come back into their own again? I mean, after this big, long time of having web pages being the main things people focused on, are you seeing kind of this Titan spring ready for the application style?
People have suffered enough with raw HTML pages. They're ready to get back to real applications that they can use. And yeah, I think you see it. I mean, I was just completely shocked at the reaction we got from Amazon, because there was, kind of this, they were firmly committed to the web. That's the place they want to be. And when we showed them the stuff in Longhorn, they just like, wow, this can solve our problem. This gave us a better user experience. And I think users are getting tired of web pages that don't refresh right and not being able to run offline and all of these things. And so I definitely think it's the time.
To go back to one point from the beginning, one of the key reasons that people went to the web in the first place is the issue of deployment. Deploying a Win32 client application is fairly hard, it's fairly costly. Deploying a web page, you just navigate to a URL and you're set. So we're going to bring that simplicity to the platform in Longhorn, where you will be able to navigate to a URL, your application will get installed, you will be able to have it offline, and you will be able to take advantage of all the functionality that's on the client, something that you couldn't do through HTML.
Now that brings up a good point, because when you browse to a web page, I mean, technically I can understand that since a web page really can't access your computer at all, it's basically perfectly safe. And so navigating to it and having that stuff coming up is perfectly fine. Whereas we're now talking about creating smart client applications that can, through WinFS, get real, rich, deep access to your operating system, the pixels on your screen, everything else like that, where a click-once style deployment sounds a little on the scary side to me. I mean, what do we even actually pay attention to make sure these new smart client applications that are as deployable as web pages really are secure and can't do anything bad?
We're doing quite a bit of work on something called the secure execution environment. And it's basically a security model that's built on top of the framework security environment. And it's something that applies both for applications that are locally deployed as well as applications that you access through click once. And it will enable you to have full access to the functionality and the performance of the machine, but still do that in a protected way. So that security is something that we're for the past 3 years that we've been working on Avalon, for example, from the beginning, security is something that we've been looking at.
Now, Quentin, since you've got WinFS, which is kind of the data model, which I think in my mind that's what I want to be secure.
Yep.
I mean, what specifically is WinFS maybe doing to make sure that these applications are secure?
Well, we have two big advantages. One, we get to bear, the two advantages are we get to bear the full weight of the CLR security model and the framework model on it, as well as NTFS. So we don't have to go out and invent an ACLing system or a code execution environment system. We're just taking advantage of the fact that we're marrying together the CLR relational engine and the file system into create the data model in the first place. So we've had to design that in from the very beginning. Every line of code has to consider how we're taking those benefits in and using those technologies to ensure that the environment is in fact secure.
Chris, you have anything to add? Put you on the spot here.
It's all great. No, actually, On the security, I think it is definitely pervasive, and everybody is thinking hard about it. All the recent press, the timing of the kind of the security crisis across the industry that we're all facing has come at, for us, actually a relatively good time. It's a time when we were already looking deep into our system and looking at how we're going to innovate for lots of other reasons. And so as we've gone through and looked at the basic building blocks, the file system, the UI presentation system, the networking stack, we're revisiting those, and we've taken security as a top level item for all of those. It's priority one in all the pillars. So I think it's great.
I mean, how tough is that ourselves internally to focus on security and understand what the security problems might be in some of the code we're writing? And what are we doing to resolve those?
It's very interesting because it moves from a model where features are your primary goal to where security is a primary goal.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what customers react to it, because there will be less features because we spent time with security. Obviously, we have a lot of features. You look at the stuff we presented this week, we have a lot of features. But in the end, there will be less things because we have to work on the security of it. But I think that's what we have to do. It's our obligation because of the size of our platform, the number of installed users, the level of those users. My mom doesn't want to worry about the security of her PC. It has to just work.
I think a lot of us feel badly about some of the past years with the security things, and a lot of us have really taken it to heart. In fact, I don't know anybody right now that doesn't worry about it, that isn't concerned about it, doesn't think about it. The past year's events around security have really, sort of shaken the tree a little bit and gotten us all very motivated around it.
Yeah, it's definitely been a culture shift, I think, at Microsoft. Yeah. Just the kind of at a grassroots level, even the way people just interact. You're in code reviews with people. You're doing spec reviews, and the security topic comes up, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if you've had Michael Howard on your show before, but you should, definitely get him on. He has great stories of how hard it used to be for him to convince teams to fix security issues, because they would be things where they look at it and they're like, well, it's the ramification isn't that bad, right? It's okay. Maybe it's a DOS issue or something like that, and it's like. But now that we've hit this where it's really brought to the attention of what the ramifications are, that's never a concern anymore. All the teams, the immediate reactions are, we have to fix this. There's no way you can punt this bug. We must take it. And that is a huge culture shift.
Yeah.
Security's not an optional feature.
Well, I think we're probably about out of time right now, but I'd like to get some brief input from each one of you of where you think some of the PDC attendees and the non-PDC attendees should be thinking next to go to for resources on how to move forward, writing their applications, getting ready for Longhorn, adding more security to them and stuff like that. Do you have any suggestions on resources and avenues for development?
The Longhorn Developer Center, that's definitely the key place to start. That's where we're going to have links to all the content we find. It'll have links to the relative MSDN content as well as third-party community stuff. And I think that and the news groups are going to be the key area to focus on.
Yeah, and especially for people that weren't able to come to the PDC, I think you can get a sense for not only the technology that we've talked about, but also the atmosphere and the buzz by going to PDC Bloggers, PDCbloggers.net, I think it is. And there you can kind of see just what attendees think about what we're talking about and kind of hear it in their own words.
Yeah, the blogs have been a significant different phenomenon at this year's PDC.
Yeah.
Be able to get this real-time feedback. You walk out of the session and boom,
it's
you're like, okay.
It's not on an evaluation form. It's on the internet.
Publicly. Yeah, exactly.
But it is important to stress that Longhorn is still quite a while away.
Yeah.
So people should really spend their time right now focusing on Windows Forms, learning that technology, applying to the applications that they're going to develop and deploy between now and then on Longhorn chips.
Mm-hmm. And managed code, right?
Managed code in general, right?
Well, we already gave you the unanimous answer.
Okay.
Well, unanimously.
Thank you guys for joining me. I'm glad to have this chance to talk with you, and hopefully our audience will understand a little bit more of what we were trying to talk about with the PDC, with Longhorn, the technologies, and managed code.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks.
So hopefully that gives you some insights on what we've been talking about the PDC, what some of the attendees have been hopefully learning about Longhorn and advanced development we're doing. And now in our next segment, we're going to actually talk to some attendees to find out what their viewpoint is. But we'll be back right after this short break.
Hey, guys.
What?
This may be a bad time to bring this up.
Bring what up?
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Confess your love for us?
Crap! Yeah! Almost got you that time, chump! Suck it, Blue!
No! You suck it, Blue?
Hey, dude, you really need to work on your comeback.
I need to leave.
Yeah, I need to go too. Worse hell, I need to go home.
No, seriously. I need to go to a conference back on Earth.
Say, what? A conference? I don't think so, Nancy. Maybe you didn't notice, but we're in the middle of a war here. What kind of conference is going to get you out of that?
It's the Microsoft PDC.
Don't let cease fire. We got to get Simmons out of here.
I really have to go. They only hold these things once every few years. What are you talking about? Do you think the Blues are going to stop fighting just because Microsoft says so?
What was that?
I think they said something about Microsoft.
Hey, Reds! We're coming out!
What the hell is going on here? Sorry, guys. Sorry. I really thought we'd be done fighting before I had to catch the transport out of here.
Nah, it's cool. We understand. We were almost out of ammo anyway.
Son of a bitch! I knew it! This sucks. How can a software company stop a war?
It's called priorities, Donut.
Can't anyone do anything about this?
Hey, you maggots! I don't hear any killing out here. We don't pay you powder puffs to stand around jawing. We'll pay you to shoot at each other.
We had to call a timeout, sir.
A timeout? What is this? Freeze tag?
Sir, it's my fault, sir. I have to leave for the Microsoft PDC. They recruited me for something called the Longhorn Squad. I'm going to be a corporal of managed code in the Indigo Battalion.
Longhorn? Managed code? Indigo? Well, son of a... Why didn't you say so? You know, I used to fight for the Microsoft forces back in my youth.
No kidding.
No kidding. I was a lieutenant back during the Browser Wars.
Okay, that is just ridiculous.
In fact, I was Mr. Steve Ballmer's personal speechwriter. I wrote his keynote for the last developers conference.
Developers. Yes!
Get up, developers. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. We got into creative differences over the speech. I wrote it so that he said developers 37 times, but he only wanted to say developers 35 times. I told him it just didn't make any sense without those last two developers. That was the hook.
I'm not buying any of this.
Believe it, Fritter. I was on the fast track until that day, and everything fell apart for me after that. Balmer had me demoted and shipped out here to this damn canyon.
Where do you think you'd be if you never wrote that speech, Sarge?
Word has it that I was next in line to become one of them little office assistant thingies, but I try not to spend my time thinking about what if. Where do you want to go today, dirtbag? Where's the conference this year?
It's in L.A.
Sweet. Keep your helmet on, though. You're going to want the oxygen.
Los Angeles ain't that bad.
California just hasn't been the same since they banned all forms of carbohydrates.
At least it'll be in October, so I'll get to enjoy the cool weather, the changing of the leaves.
Leaves?
Weather?
October? Simmons, you're like an illegitimate son to me.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
I want you to go to the PDC, and I want you to do what I couldn't do.
You want me to get a Microsoft executive to say developers 35 times?
No, I want you to get him to say it 37 times. And then I want you to collect a bunch of free giveaway crap, like pens and mouse pads, and those little squish ball things. I love those little ball things. I had one once. Can't remember where I got it. It hardly seems important at this stage. I sure do like poofy things.
Welcome back. Now, earlier we talked with some people from Microsoft about why they came to the PDC, what they intended to actually communicate to some of the attendees here, and what they thought was important about Longhorn development getting forward. What I've got to be now is some of the attendees of the PDC. I want to take and find out from them why they came to the PDC, what they found has been really important for them, what they learned, what they discovered, and what sort of things maybe they still have some questions about, what Longhorn might do and what in the time between now and Longhorn shipment they plan on doing for focusing on their development efforts. So what I'd like to do now is have each one of my guests introduce themselves and let you know who they are and what they're doing. Why don't we start with you, Richard?
Sure, thank you. My name is Richard Shaw. I have a training consulting firm in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We do .NET and UML and XML training really across the U.S. and other parts of the world as well.
And why did you come to the PDC?
PDC is, for us, a chance to see, obviously, where Microsoft wants to go over the next couple of years. Might go. Sometimes they go there, and sometimes they don't go exactly there. But that's the idea, is to see where they'd like to go. It's also a chance for us to reconnect with old friends and see a lot of people that you just don't always get to see on a regular basis. We were just out, a couple of colleagues of mine and I, having coffee out there, and see Anders Halsberg walking across the room and hailing him with all praise A. And, it's very exciting to see guys like that and be able to talk to them and ask them routine questions right there on the spot. A lot of fun.
So essentially, since your livelihood is based upon helping other people understand how to use Microsoft technologies or the development services in their own work, you need to make sure that you're understanding where we're going so you can try to be either one step ahead or at least in lockstep so that your customers can get more benefit out of what you're providing them.
Would you like to write my marketing copy for me in the future like that? That's great, Robert. You're exactly right. And it's critical, I think, anybody, even end user firms who are going to keep track of what Microsoft's doing, to at least touch base with what Microsoft would like to be doing. And that's, I think, what the PDC is all about, to give you like a 2-year, here's where we'd like to be a couple years down the road picture.
Okay, thanks.
My name is Simon Stewart, and I work with a company called IDTech in South Africa. I'm one of the chief architects, and I think the most important thing for me, as far as coming here and seeing what goes on, is really to see what Microsoft wants for the future, and also the products that they want to use to actually get them there. It's been the main thing.
And what sort of development stuff do you work on right now?
Primarily, it's .NET, custom development in .NET, mainly in C#, also some C++. So yeah, I mean the same as Richard, seeing some of the new stuff, and also hearing guys like Anders Halsberg talk about the new enhancements, and really seeing it from the creator of the language has been fantastic. Yeah.
In New York?
I'm Rob McClarty. I work for an investment firm in New York. I'm not a developer at all, but I somewhat understand the technology, and I'm here just to get a feeling for what Microsoft is doing, and also to understand what the implications might be from an economic perspective.
Yeah, you say you're not a developer, but still it was important enough to you to come to a developers conference to understand these sorts of things. How does that actually play out? I mean, not being a developer, why come to a developers conference?
Because this is the first glimpse of Longhorn, and you get so much more information. You get different information going to a business conference than you do going to a developers conference. It's a different perspective, and it's a different way to get valuable information, not only by talking to Microsoft people that are technology people, but also real developers, people that are using tools and putting Microsoft implementations out into the world.
Well, I know that at the PDC here, this has been the first time we actually have unveiled some of the aspects of Longhorn and stuff like that to people. I believe Richard's probably seen some of this stuff because he's got some good contacts inside of Microsoft and being a press kind of person that helps him quite a bit. But the rest of you probably really didn't know other than what you read in blogs and stuff like that. Could each one of you kind of briefly say, what your expectations were about Longhorn and maybe some of the things that surprised you that you saw here at the conference?
Okay. Yeah, I think what I was expecting was perhaps more focused on from the server side, what they were going to do from things like IIS and more stability from the actual core engine itself. But the front end stuff's really good. Some of the new stuff they're doing, and also the fact that they're opening it up. There's nothing worse than seeing some really good functionality, but you can't actually use it. So that's been good to see that focus from Microsoft.
So from a development standpoint, most of your own needs are server-based, and so you're focusing, your company is focusing more on working on things on the server, and that's why you're wanting to focus more on the server aspects.
Well, I mean, everyone needs a server if you're going to do enterprise applications. The front end's nice, but if the back end falls over, then it doesn't really count for anything.
Now, from a client side perspective, what you're seeing Longhorn providing, do you see anything there that meets well your needs on the server side of things?
Yeah, I think what they've done with Avalon is fantastic, and especially some of the data, the relationships, being able to set up relationships from inside Windows. That could open up a whole new avenue of development. Yeah, and also the navigation, the carousel control, that was really good. And yeah, I look forward to seeing it in a real world application.
What about you, Rob? What are some of the things that you kind of caught you by surprise when you came here and you said, wow, that's something kind of exciting I wasn't really expecting?
WinFS was interesting. I was just having a conversation about that. Taking the tack that I do where I look for how it might impact other businesses. I'm still trying to figure it out, but it sounds like WinFS might be consuming a lot more hard disk than regular Windows 2000 or anything that uses NTFS. So that has implications on the industry in certain ways.
So in other words, better understanding how WinFS is going to actually be utilizing the disk resources it has is kind of important, because clearly, I mean, right now we've got you got the data file and you got the fat table that you're dealing with, and very little footprint on top of that, perhaps, with adding to the metadata. Where WinFS has got a lot more metadata coming in the picture. That's got to be stored someplace, and in order to make that metadata as rich and useful as possible for the search and queries, that means more and more information needs to be pulled in the metadata, because you clearly don't want to be searching through the files every single time you do a query. And so I think that's where a lot of the performance comes in. Like I say, fortunately, the hard disks are getting cheaper and cheaper these days.
Right.
Robert, along those lines, though, there's an interesting point you're raising. If you think about side-by-side execution in .NET, which is now an old story in a lot of respects, right? I guess for a lot of customers, it's still a new story, or they haven't discovered it yet. But for the early adopters, it's an old story. The implication was that hard disk storage space, this goes to Rob's point, hard disk storage space is actually relatively cheap. And our advice to customers is, except in the embedded or handheld environments, if you can't afford hard disk space, you're in the wrong business, because it is the cheapest commodity out there. I would rather have them chew up my hard disk space, and maybe I've got to readjust my future assumptions for that kind of space in order to get that kind of rich information. We've already seen in managed code development the benefits of having rich metadata that permeates the entire system, or just overwhelm any of the possible negatives you can have as fallout there. So I would say, please let them chew up my disk space. So I got bigger problems to solve trying to ship product to customer, and metadata is going to help me with that.
So if you can get value and or performance by requiring a larger hard drive, money well spent.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So what have you seen at the conference here, maybe that kind of caught you by surprise, or has got you kind of excited about what Longhorn's providing?
I think overall, and this is, long ago under NDA, I heard people mention that Longhorn was kind of .NET becomes Windows or something like that. But if you think about it, the managed environment explodes into the operating system and the implications of what you can do in a managed environment, which goes to your earlier point about we ought to be writing managed code. I think we were talking about this earlier. Yeah. If people aren't writing managed code by the time Longhorn comes out, they're just not going to be able to get the benefits of it. If you start thinking about the implications of a managed code environment and then how that permeates the entire operating system, it's very rich. There's lots more opportunity than just saying, well, are we running Win2K or WinXP with the .NET framework installed? It goes way beyond that. Historically, though, it's interesting to me because this is one more step on a long path for a lot of us who've been around the business for a while towards Cairo. So we're getting closer to the whole idea of what used to be called Cairo, a code name from 10 years ago, of a fully object-oriented operating system, but it's beyond that because you have this rich type information and far better services than any of us ever imagined. Back then, that makes it easier to build lots of different types of applications.
Now, talking about managed code, since you've taken, do some development services to people, and you're dealing with trying to get people to understand managed code better, do you find that people are really understanding the benefits of managed code, or is that something that we still need to do a better job of educating people on?
It's a good question, and the answers are yes and no. Yes, they are understanding managed code once they have made the commitment to move at least to the .NET framework, because although a lot of time that's motivated by the fact that somebody somewhere has made a decision in that organization for them, not necessarily the person we're talking to has decided this is a good thing. Once we or somebody qualified shows them what you can do in the managed code environments, you won't ever have a developer saying, I want to go back. They'll be screaming if they're forced to go back to work in an unmanaged environment. And so the tricky part, and this is where all of us have to work harder at getting the message out there, is what the benefits of managed code are and why we need to get as many developers as possible who are still working in unmanaged environments like Windows without .NET or Visual C++ prior to .NET or VB6 or any of that. They are spending so much time and effort doing workarounds for things that someone in a managed environment does with a wave of a hand.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to express the major productivity gains that somebody in those older environments would get if they moved to managed code. They're not going to get them staying there. But it's kind of like being in a country where people don't have any feeling in their hands. You've got hands. You tell them, look at all these things I can do with my hands, and they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah, that might be interesting for Simon and Rami to respond to. How is managed code working its way through your companies, and do you have any feeling for what's going on there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been using .NET for about 3 years now, and I agree with Richard. I mean, we just couldn't go back, and I think things are moving so fast now, and there's going to be so much real deep integration into the operating system going forward that if you don't make the jump now, it's going to be really, really difficult to do that. But yeah, there are so many benefits, and it's been fantastic. We've got Perl programmers and Java programmers that have migrated to C#, and they've really stuck with it, and that's really their favorite language now. So yeah, we sold.
Okay. What about you, Robbie? Are you aware of any managed code aspects inside your company at all, or is that
not
really?
Something you're dealing with? I know that we have developers programming in C# on the .NET framework, but I have no clue really anything beyond that.
Now, personally, do you understand what managed code is and why it might be important?
I understand the benefits in terms of garbage collection and improved security, but I don't have a great understanding.
But from a non-developer standpoint, I think understanding those two things is really kind of important. Because having garbage collection,
That's good.
Yeah, so I think that's great. I think as long as people are focusing on it, and quite often I'm surprised when I do developer events and I'm talking to people, whether it's developers or non-developers, and they say, managed code, I just haven't quite got into that yet. It shocks me. Maybe it's just because I'm living and breathing it so much, and you guys are too, obviously, that when someone doesn't understand what managed code is, it's kind of strange.
It's the message that I think Microsoft, if you talked about your original question about have we been successful or not getting the message out about managed code, the answer is no in terms of Microsoft's marketing. But it's a tough message to get out there, so I'm going to give Microsoft marketing a freebie that they can put out there right now. And the message they should give to their customer is, if you don't move to managed code, your competitors will.
Yeah.
And I think that's it right there.
Yeah, that's a good statement.
So on those lines, is there anything at the conference that you haven't seen enough of that you wish you maybe had a little more guidance or information on?
So far, no. I've seen a lot. Perhaps Indigo, just understanding a bit more about where that fits in, and also how we can leverage off it. But so far, it's been great. Learned a lot, seen a lot of people, and that's really probably the big thing of coming here.
What are some of the main sessions you've been to? You mentioned Indigo and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been to some Dunbox sessions, which have been great.
Yeah. Did you sing any songs there?
No, I didn't. Spoke about his mom a bit, but and also some Anders Hausberg sessions.
Perfect.
And that's been my main focus really. But also some of the productivity enhancements in the IDE has been pretty impressive. And also understanding the trade-offs that they made, why they did certain things, why they didn't do certain things. And it's good to really hear it firsthand.
What about you, Richard? What are some of the sessions you've been to?
Actually, I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to plug Ineta. if I may.
Sure.
Because I'm an INETA speaker, but more important is that for a lot of people who don't know, INETA is the Independent Association of .NET User Groups, and there is a speakers bureau consisting of some unbelievable people. If you just go to the INETA website and take a look, who can come in and give talks either at your organization or at your user group. And for fun, Carl Franklin, myself, George Bullock, who's a Microsoft guy, Jeff Procyse, another INETA speaker, Sean Wildemuth, also an INETA speaker, all of us got together last night and put together the INETA Speakers Band. And we kicked, I can't say what we kicked, that wouldn't be good on camera, but we rocked.
I heard about
that.
It
was a great band. I dare say you could even have the INETA speaker band come and play and give you great technical talks if you just ask INETA. So go to ineta.org for that.
So it sounds like you're saying most of your time just having fun then.
Well, some of this I've seen before, so yeah, I'm doing some social things too. But it's woven into the technical fabric, right?
Yeah. And Rob, what about you? Have you been to any sessions and stuff like that? And if so, which ones?
I've enjoyed the general sessions probably the most because a lot of the breakouts actually get into code.
Yeah.
So I tune out a little bit there. I can follow, but I find that the general sessions focus more upon the big picture, which is more where I deal. So that's where the greatest benefit has been for me.
What are some of the key takeaways that you took from some of the general sessions specifically?
It was interesting to hear this morning's talk with respect to Microsoft Research. Some interesting applications in terms of tablets. What else? I enjoyed Bill Gates' talk. Obviously, the one that kicked it all off. That was really great. Again, mostly just the bigger picture of Longhorn and what it could mean.
Now, one of the reasons why we're giving people such an early glimpse of Longhorn like this, because we're still several years away from shipping, which creates some strange marketing issues and problems like that. Just opening up the kimono so early like this, is we want to make sure that Longhorn has the features and capabilities that all you guys are wanting. And each one of you kind of represent a different market segment to an extent. Can you kind of let us know what you think you would like to see in Longhorn? If someone were just kind of give you a brief description of what Longhorn would be, what would you say? Well, gee, I sure hope they're going to solve this problem. Maybe Richard, you can start out.
Wow, I don't know if I can give you a really accurate answer there, other than I think staying on the path to finding as many ways to exploit the managed code environment in the context of the operating system, and maybe not even stopping with where they are. I think that would be probably the best general answer I could give, because there's so many different ways that this could be applied, and I don't know if that's even been thought through completely. I like what I've seen so far. There's always the concern that what you're seeing, however, is still going to change a lot between the time you're seeing it at a PDC and 2 years from now when it ships, because there'll be the approximate ship date that's probably been announced this week, and then there'll be the usual 8-month time lag between the time that they say it's going to ship and it really does appear. So many things can change it. And sometimes I think the vision that's announced with so much energy at a place like this gets lost between now and then. And I would say stay true to that vision as much as they can. Try not to make too many compromises strictly for the sake of trying to ship something. Microsoft's best work has been done when they have taken the hits in the press, delayed something, and done the right job for the customer, rather than saying, oh, we got to ship, and then they make a lot of shortcuts and leave things out or cut something short that's really not as good as it could be. So, and again, the .NET Framework actually is a good example of that. The development teams were allowed to call the shots and say, we're not letting this out until we think it's where it should be. And I think that made a big difference. I hope the operating system teams will do the same thing.
Yeah, that's very well taken, because it takes an awful lot of time to develop something like an operating system, and Longhorn has an awful lot of stuff in it. On one hand, I'm really surprised at how well it works today. My team's been running a lot of the demos and stuff on it. And while there are some rough spots, it works. I can write code in C#, and I've got Avalon things and XAML that I can do on it. But it's kind of cool. But I know there's still an awful lot further to go on it. What about you, Simon? What would you like to see in Longhorn?
Well, I think some of the main things are definitely performance, but obviously also stability on the platform. Security is also really important, and it's good to hear Microsoft talk about that and really some of the things that they're doing, and also the book that they gave us as well. But I think also it's really important for me that what they advertise that the operating system can do, that I can actually do. You know, adding things to the sidebar, I want that to be really easy for me. I don't want to have to write the plumbing. If Microsoft's done it, it'd be really good if I can just plug into a DLL. Yep. So currently there's some workarounds you have to do and lots of third-party components. But I think definitely if I can do what they can do, well, I mean what they're showing at the conference, then I'm happy.
Yeah. I know one of our goals is try to make programming for Longhorn as simple as possible. I mean, the days of having to write, tons and tons and tons of COM code is kind of hopefully out the window. I mean, while you can do an awful lot of power with COM code, it still took some work to get that sort of stuff done. I don't know whether you saw Eric Rudder's talk or not, but in there he was talking about how we did some code examples of doing a security type application that was connected to the internet, and here it is with 50,000 lines of code, and then we take and made a modification. Now we got it down to 25,000 lines of code, and now we've got it down to 3 lines of code doing the exact same functionality. And so that's what we're constantly doing. I think .NET kind of shows what we really can do. We say, okay, we really don't need to make programmers write all this code, do we? We kind of they're doing it over and over and over again. Why don't we just do it once? Get it out of the way, make one call, set a couple properties, and have it be done. So I know that's hopefully part of the goal of it. Yeah. So what about you, Rob? What would you like to see Longhorn do to solve some of the problems your company has, or just maybe some cool consumer kind of issues too?
From a user perspective, I'd like to see faster and fewer reboots. I used to work in the telecom space. I actually used to design for voice switches, which were very old machines, but they worked like a charm. And if one ever went down, it would come up. Another side would switch in immediately. And so I think that if I can say anything is to Microsoft is look towards other places in the technology realm, such as telecom, where they have had higher bar for reliability and perhaps performance, and look to them for a lead, because like as a user, it kills me to wait sometimes a minute to get my PC to boot up. It's not the case all the time, but I think that it would really improve the experience if it would just come up a lot faster. It's a simple thing, but I think it's valuable.
I mean, the problem is there's so much stuff that's going on during boot up. I mean, whether it's reconnecting to the network or verifying your authentication or stuff like that. I mean, it's almost mind-boggling that it takes as short a time as it does, but still, it's frustrating when you turn your machine on and it just takes so long to happen. I know that's a big problem. A lot of people
can't focus on. Switch.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're almost out of time now, but I'd like to kind of get some quick feedback from you, maybe. How would you like to see Microsoft communicating information to you, like a PDC information, like the .NET show and stuff like that, to help you better understand where we're planning on taking our platform and stuff like that? Is there ways we can improve the way we communicate to you your specific needs for the platform?
I've been pretty happy so far. I've just recently gotten onto MSDN and watched some of your videos, so I'll continue to do that. I think that using logs and feeds are really useful.
So you go to the net and read blogs and stuff like that of what people are doing and stuff?
Yeah. So I find it pretty helpful. I don't really have any complaints or recommendations.
Yeah, I think blogs are also useful. But I think it would be good for Microsoft to maybe have more interviews with people and really discuss why they did certain things, to really get that information out into the community. But yeah, I think definitely just keep putting the developer first, and yeah, just push the information to them.
I would say along the same lines, any way that any of this can be, if it's not already scheduled to be part of MSDN Universal, or those packages, to put it in there. The developer with MSDN Universal is basically armed to the teeth to do anything they need to do on a Microsoft platform. And they don't need to lower the price, but you always want to just find it in there. You don't want to have to go looking anywhere else, or that ID should be able to get you any information you could want to get that if it isn't in your current DVD set, it's on the site. Yeah. As long as that stuff is packaged where MSDN subscribers can get to it easily. I think that's the key. I think it's worth asking a developer to pony up that price and then packaging it and packing as much in there so that we can get to it very, very easily and quickly.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the time you spent here with us to take and talk about your thoughts about the PDC and Longhorn and stuff like that. There's still, another half day going on of sessions, and the sessions tomorrow. Hopefully you're going to all attend the symposiums and the panel discussions going on. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
So hopefully that gave you an idea of what Longhorn is, what the PDC is, and what the two different sides have kind of come out about it. We had Microsoft people that talking about the technologies and what they hope to communicate to people, to PDC, and now we heard from the attendees of what they hope to get from the PDC and what they do plan on doing moving forward with their own development efforts. Thanks for joining us.
With me today is Don Box, an architect at Microsoft. Don, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Erica.
Good to have you, Don. So why don't you start by telling us what exactly you do at Microsoft? What are you an architect for?
So I'm an architect on the Indigo team. I work on both the protocol stack and the implementation of that for doing messaging using XML on our platform.
Okay. Can you get into some specifics about what you're working on? Any projects?
Sure. Right now, except for the PDC, which I'm obviously at right now, right up until now, and of course when I get back next week, we've been working on the milestone, which is going to be our beta 1. And we've just been doing a lot of simplification, a lot of reduction in surface area, making the product simpler to use for everybody.
So, Don, how long have you been at Microsoft?
I've been at Microsoft for 20 months.
20 months, exactly.
Yes.
So you're fairly new.
I'm relatively new, yes.
So what did you do before Microsoft?
Before Microsoft, I traveled the globe with a bell telling people about COM. I would walk up and down the streets and declare, I unknown, I unknown, I unknown.
So tell me about your fascination with COM. Where did that start?
It started on August 8th, 1994. At one moment, COM just became pretty obvious to me. Before that, I was in a complete haze and knew nothing about it. And I kind of figured it out on August 8th, 1994, and I just kind of fell in love. And so I've been doing that for a long time.
Is COM still near and dear to your heart?
Yes, we're basically rebuilding COM one little brick by brick at a time.
So you've been doing technology all your life, basically?
Yeah, I've been doing software since about 1984.
So what do you like to do outside of work?
I love working to get senior executives to do new things in their keynotes. So this year I was able to get Jim Alchin to come out of his shell and confront the fact that he loves using VI. I plan for the next PDC, which may be 2005 or 2006. My goal is to get Steve Ballmer to get up and program in Edlin, which is the original line editor for DOS.
Okay, beyond work, though, what do you like to do outside of work?
Erica, that's not work. That's what I like to do. But I have other hobbies, too. I have a band called Band on the Runtime, and we've been playing together for a couple of years now. And we get a chance to play at most Microsoft events, and it's been pretty fun.
Can you give us some examples of your song titles?
Sure. We have, let's see, this year we had a bunch of new tunes. We did One More Version to the tune of Like a Virgin. We did On Longhorn to the tune of On Broadway. And I sang, I'm doing some recruiting. I'm trying to get Miguel Diacaza to join us at Microsoft. And I sang a love ballad to him, which was, of course, called Miguel.
Yeah, do you think he'll appreciate it?
I know he appreciated it. He's told me privately many times that he was moved.
So can folks out there get your music out on CD?
We don't have a CD yet, but there were many A&R people, because we're in LA, what are you going to do? There were a lot of scouts out there, and we'll see what happens.
And can you tell us what you see about your future at Microsoft? What are some things you'd like to work towards?
I really don't know. Right now, I'm pretty heads down trying to get Indigo out the door with 250 of my closest friends. I really don't know what I'm going to do next.
And what is your favorite thing about working at Microsoft?
My favorite thing about working at Microsoft is the people I work with.
It's a good crowd. Well done. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Erica.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the .NET Show.
And to continue our Longhorn coverage, next time we'll bring you an overview of Longhorn.
And until then, we'll see you on the web.